The gunshot that killed her husband barely hurt compared to the guilt that followed. Theresa Novak stood at the edge of Fort Stanton's dusty Main Street, her worn cotton dress hanging loose on a frame that had grown too thin over the past year. The New Mexico sun beat down mercilessly on this July afternoon in 1878, but she barely felt it anymore. Numbness had become her constant companion, a shield against the crushing weight of what she had done, what she had failed to do, what she could never undo. The general store needed her. Mrs. Patterson had been kind enough to give her work after Daniel died, even though half the town whispered that Theresa was cursed. Bad luck followed her like a shadow, they said. First her parents to fever when she was 16, then her younger brother to a riding accident just months after, and finally Daniel, shot down by rustlers while she watched from behind a water barrel, too frozen with fear to even scream a warning. She had been 22 when Daniel died. Now, at 23, she felt ancient. The bell above the store's door chimed as she entered, and Mrs. Patterson looked up from the counter with the practiced smile of someone who had learned to be kind without getting too close. Nobody got too close to Theresa anymore. She was damaged goods, a widow with shadows in her eyes and no prospects for anything better. Afternoon, Theresa. The shipment from Santa Fe arrived. Need you to help organize the dry goods in the back. Yes, madam. Theresa moved through the store like a ghost, her footsteps silent, her presence barely registering. That was how she preferred it. If she stayed quiet enough, small enough, maybe life would forget about her the way she desperately wanted to forget about herself. She was lifting a crate of flour when the door chimed again, bringing with it the sound of spurs and the scent of leather and sage. Theresa did not look up. She had learned not to draw attention, not to meet anyone's eyes, not to invite conversation or connection. Those things only led to loss. Afternoon, Mrs. Patterson. I am looking for someone who might know about medicinal herbs. Got a horse with colic, and the regular remedies are not working. The voice was deep and steady, with a gentleness that seemed odd coming from someone whose spurs and boots marked him as a working cowboy. Theresa kept her eyes on the flour sacks, but something in that voice made her pause. Well now, let me think, Mrs. Patterson said. Old Doc Brennan might know, but he is 3 days gone to Las Cruces. Theresa, dear, did not your mother used to work with healing plants? Theresa's hand stilled on the crate. She did not want to turn around, did not want to engage, but Mrs. Patterson was waiting, and refusing would be rude to the woman who had given her employment when no one else would. She turned slowly, keeping her eyes lowered. My mother knew some remedies. This is Theresa Novak, Mrs. Patterson said. Theresa, this is Ryder Quinn. He has the ranch about 8 miles north of town, the old Henderson place. Madam. Ryder's voice carried respect that Theresa had not heard directed at her in a long time. I would be mighty grateful for any help. The mare is in bad shape, and she is a good animal. Hate to lose her. Theresa finally lifted her eyes, and for a moment her carefully constructed walls trembled. Ryder Quinn was tall and broad-shouldered, probably around 26 or 27, with sun-darkened skin and brown hair that curled slightly at his collar. But it was his eyes that caught her, hazel eyes that looked at her with neither pity nor judgment, just honest need. I do not know if I can help, she said quietly. Would you be willing to try? I can pay for your time, and I will bring you right back to town once we are done. Everything in Theresa screamed to refuse. Getting involved meant risking failure. Failure meant more guilt, more proof that she was not capable of saving anything or anyone. But the horse had done nothing wrong, and if there was even a small chance she could help. Let me get my shawl. 20 minutes later, Theresa sat beside Ryder on the bench of his wagon. her hands folded tightly in her lap as they rolled north along the rutted road. The landscape stretched out around them in shades of gold and rust, dotted with piñon, pine, and juniper. The Capitan Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still holding patches of snow despite the summer heat. "How long have you had the ranch?" she asked, more to fill the silence than from genuine curiosity. "Bought it 4 months ago. Been working cattle drives for near about 10 years, saving every penny. Finally had enough to stop wandering and put down roots." He glanced at her. "It is a good piece of land. Got water year-round from a spring-fed creek, good grazing. Just me working it right now, but I am hoping to build it up slow and steady." "That sounds nice." The words came out flat, automatic. She had forgotten how to sound genuinely interested in anything. "Mrs. Patterson mentioned you lost your husband. I am sorry for your loss." Theresa's hands tightened in her lap. "Thank you." She waited for the usual follow-up questions or comments, the ones that always came laced with curiosity or judgment. But Ryder simply nodded and turned his attention back to the horses pulling the wagon. Something about his silence felt different from the silence of others. It was not the silence of someone uncomfortable with her grief, but of someone who understood that some things did not need to be prodded or examined. The ranch came into view as they crested a low rise. It was modest, but well-maintained, a small ranch house with a covered porch, a barn that had been recently painted, corrals with good strong fencing, and the endless sweep of grassland beyond. Theresa felt a strange pang looking at it, something she could not quite name. It looked like the kind of place where people built lives, raised families, grew old together. The kind of place she would never have. "She is in the barn," Ryder said, bringing the wagon to a stop near the house. He helped Theresa down, his hand warm and steady on her elbow, then led her to the barn's dim interior. The mare was lying on her side in a stall, her breathing labored, her coat dark with sweat. Theresa felt her chest tighten. The animal was suffering, and if she could not help, that suffering would be her fault too. "What have you tried?" she asked, kneeling beside the horse. Walking her, gave her some mineral oil, tried to keep her comfortable. "Started yesterday evening, and she has just gotten worse." Theresa placed her hand gently on the mare's neck, feeling the tremors running through her body. In her mind, she heard her mother's voice from years ago, patient and calm, teaching her about plants and their properties. She had been so young then, so eager to learn, believing that knowledge could protect the people she loved. She had been wrong about that. "I need to go look for some herbs," she said. "There is a combination my mother used: wild mint, juniper berries, and snakeweed if I can find it. They can help with digestive issues in horses. I will come with you. You should stay with her. The mare will be fine for a bit, and you should not be out there alone. Mountain lions sometimes come down from the high country this time of year." Theresa wanted to argue, but the practical part of her brain knew he was right. She nodded, and they set out on foot toward the creek that ran through his property. The land here was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. The kind of beauty that demanded respect and offered no mercy to those who underestimated it. Theresa found herself noticing details she had not paid attention to in months: the way the light caught on the leaves of a cottonwood, the distant cry of a hawk, the smell of sun-warmed earth. "There," she said, pointing to a cluster of plants near the creek bank. "That is wild mint." They gathered what they needed in companionable silence. Ryder watched as she worked, his presence somehow both unobtrusive and solid. When she straightened with her apron full of plants, he was holding out his bandana, for carrying them. "Thank you." Back at the barn, Theresa crushed and prepared the herbs the way her mother had taught her, mixing them with warm water to create a drench. Ryder held the mare's head while Theresa carefully administered the mixture, murmuring soft words to keep the animal calm. "Now we wait," she said, sitting back on her heels. "Can I get you something? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be good, thank you." Ryder returned with 2 tin cups and a pitcher of cool water from his spring house. They sat on hay bales in the barn, watching the mare, waiting for signs of improvement or decline. "You have a gentle hand with animals," Ryder said after a while. "She trusted you right off." "My mother always said animals know when you are trying to help." Theresa took a sip of water. "I just hope it works." "Already working, I think. Look at her breathing." He was right. The mare's respirations had slowed, become less labored. As they watched, she lifted her head slightly, then shifted her weight. Over the next hour, her condition continued to improve. By the time the sun was starting to sink toward the horizon, she was standing, looking tired but stable. "You did it," Ryder said, wonder in his voice. "You actually did it. The herbs did it. I just remembered what my mother taught me. You saved her life, Theresa. That is no small thing." "But it is one life," Theresa thought, "against how many that I failed to save." She kept the thought to herself, though, and helped Ryder make sure the mare was comfortable before he drove her back to town. The return journey was quieter than the trip out had been. The day's heat was fading into the cool of evening, and the sky was painting itself in shades of amber and rose. Theresa felt exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical effort. Helping the mare had required her to care about something beyond her own guilt and grief, and caring was dangerous. Caring led to loss. "I would like to pay you," Ryder said as they approached Fort Stanton. "That is not necessary. You spent half your day helping me. It is necessary." He pulled the wagon to a stop near the boarding house where Theresa rented a small room. "Would you object to me bringing payment by the general store tomorrow?" "I do not need payment, Mr. Quinn." "Ryder." "And everyone needs payment for their work. It is only fair." Theresa climbed down from the wagon before he could help her. "Good night, Mr. Quinn. I am glad your mare is better." She was inside the boarding house before he could respond, her heart hammering in her chest. She could not explain, even to herself, why his kindness felt so threatening. Why the honest appreciation in his eyes had made her want to run. Maybe because kindness implied she deserved it, and Theresa knew, deep in her bones, that she did not. That night, she lay in her narrow bed and stared at the ceiling, trying not to think about hazel eyes and a gentle voice, trying not to remember what it felt like to help something instead of watching it suffer, trying not to hope. Hope was the most dangerous thing of all. The next morning at the general store, Theresa was restocking shelves when the door chimed. She knew without looking that it was Ryder. Something about his footsteps, the way he moved through space, had already become familiar. "Morning, Mrs. Patterson." "Morning, Theresa." "Mr. Quinn." Theresa kept her eyes on the shelf in front of her. The mare is doing real well. Eating and drinking like nothing happened. Wanted to bring this by. She heard coins clink on the counter. "And I was wondering if Theresa might be willing to come out to the ranch again. Got a few other things I could use advice on, if she has got the knowledge." "Oh, Theresa would be happy to help, would you not, dear?" Mrs. Patterson's voice was bright with an enthusiasm that made Theresa's stomach sink. The older woman had been making increasingly obvious comments about how Theresa needed to rejoin the living and open herself to new opportunities. "I do not think. Nonsense. You know more about plants and animals than anyone else in town, and Mr. Quinn needs help. Besides, the fresh air would do you good. You are much too pale, spending all your time indoors." Theresa finally turned, finding Ryder watching her with an expression she could not quite read. "I do not want to impose on Mr. Quinn's time." "You would be helping me, not imposing," Ryder said. And I would make sure you are back before dark. Maybe this Saturday, if that works for you." Every instinct told her to refuse. But Mrs. Patterson was watching with hopeful eyes, and Ryder was looking at her like her answer actually mattered to him. And before she could stop herself, she nodded. "Saturday afternoon, then," Ryder said. And the smile that crossed his face was so genuine it made Theresa's chest ache. The days until Saturday passed in their usual gray haze, but with an undercurrent of something Theresa refused to name. She caught herself thinking about the ranch, about the mare, about the way Ryder's hands had been gentle but confident as he worked with the animal. She pushed the thoughts away each time they surfaced, but they kept returning like birds to a nest. Saturday dawned clear and hot. Theresa dressed in her simplest work dress and braided her dark hair tightly. In the small, spotted mirror above her washstand, she examined her face, too thin, too pale, with shadows under her eyes that never quite went away. She looked like what she was, a woman who had forgotten how to live. Ryder arrived at noon, his wagon freshly cleaned, his manner easy and respectful. "Thought maybe we could look at the kitchen garden I am trying to start," he said as they headed out of town. "I've got a black thumb when it comes to growing things. Cattle I understand, plants not so much." Despite herself, Theresa felt a small flicker of amusement. "A rancher who cannot grow a garden, I know. It is shameful." His tone was self-deprecating, inviting her to share the joke. "But it is the truth. Everything I plant either dies or gets eaten by rabbits." "Maybe you are planting the wrong things for this climate." "That is definitely possible. That is why I am hoping you can help." The ranch looked even better in full daylight. Theresa could see the care Ryder had taken with everything: the neat repairs on the barn, the well-maintained equipment, the small touches that showed pride of ownership. The garden plot behind the house was less successful, a sad collection of struggling plants and bare patches. "See what I mean?" Ryder said, gesturing at the plot with obvious frustration. "It is pitiful." Theresa knelt and examined the soil, then looked at what he had planted. "You have got plants here that need more water than others, all mixed together, and the soil is too sandy in some spots. We need to amend it and reorganize what you are growing." The word had slipped out without thought. Theresa felt her cheeks warm. "I meant you. You need to reorganize. Or we could do it together if you are willing to help. I learn better by doing than by being told." Over the next few hours, they worked side by side in the garden. Ryder fetched compost from behind the barn while Theresa divided the plants into groups based on their needs. He dug and hauled while she directed and replanted, and slowly, the chaotic garden began to take shape. "Why did you choose this place?" Theresa asked during a break, when they were sitting in the shade of the porch with cold water from the spring house. "The land called to me, I guess. I have seen a lot of country in my years driving cattle: Texas, Kansas, Colorado. But when I rode through here and saw this spot, something just felt right about it, like I was supposed to be here." He paused. "That probably sounds foolish." "No, it sounds like you found where you belong." "What about you? Where do you belong?" The question was gentle, but it still hit like a blow. Theresa stared out at the land, at the mountains in the distance, at the endless sky. "I do not think I belong anywhere anymore." "Why not?" "Because everywhere I go, I bring bad luck with me. Everyone I care about ends up hurt or dead." The words tumbled out before she could stop them, raw and honest in a way she had not been with anyone since Daniel died. She waited for Ryder to pull away, to make some excuse to take her back to town, to show her the same wariness everyone else did. Instead, he said, "That sounds like a heavy burden to carry all alone." "It is the truth." "Is it? Or is it what you have told yourself because grief needs somewhere to go?" Theresa stood abruptly, her hands shaking. "You do not know anything about it. You are right. I do not." Ryder stood too but made no move toward her. But I know something about guilt, about thinking if you had just done something different, been something more, you could have stopped bad things from happening. And I have learned that most of the time we are not as powerful as we think we are. We cannot control everything, cannot prevent every tragedy. Sometimes terrible things just happen and it is not our fault. I was there, Theresa said, her voice breaking, when the rustlers came for our horses. Daniel went out to stop them and I hid. I hid like a coward while they shot him. I did not even scream to warn him. You would have been killed too. Maybe I should have been. No. The word was firm, almost sharp. No, Theresa, your death would not have saved your husband. It would have just been another tragedy. Tears were streaming down her face now, hot and unstoppable. I could not save any of them. Not my parents, not my brother, not Daniel. Everyone I love dies. That is not the same as you killing them. Fever is not your fault. Accidents are not your fault. Rustlers are not your fault. Ryder took a careful step closer. You have survived things that would break most people. That does not make you cursed, it makes you strong. I am not strong, I am broken. Maybe you are both, maybe we all are. Theresa wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold in the sobs that wanted to escape. She felt Ryder's hand on her shoulder, warm and steady, and instead of pulling away, she found herself leaning into that steadiness. Just for a moment. Just long enough to remember what it felt like to be held up by someone else's strength. When the crying finally subsided, she felt hollowed out and embarrassed. I am sorry. I should not have. Do not apologize for being honest. Do not apologize for hurting. Ryder's hand dropped away, but his voice remained gentle. We do not have to talk about it anymore if you do not want to. We can just finish the garden. But I want you to know that I do not think you are cursed or unlucky or any of the other things people might have said. I just think you are someone who has been hurt and has not figured out how to heal yet. They returned to work in silence, but something had shifted. The wall Theresa kept between herself and the world had cracked, just slightly, and through that crack, light was beginning to seep. As the afternoon stretched toward evening, Theresa found herself talking. Small things at first, comments about plants, questions about the ranch, observations about the landscape. But gradually, the conversation deepened. She told Ryder about her mother's garden back in Kansas, about learning to identify herbs by smell before she could read. He told her about growing up in Missouri, about losing his father to the war and his mother to heartbreak shortly after, about finding purpose in the hard work and clear goals of cattle driving. They were both orphans, Theresa realized. Both alone in the world, trying to build something from the rubble of loss. I should get you back to town, Ryder said as the sun began to sink. But would you be willing to come again next week? I could use help with the mare. Want to make sure she is fully recovered. Theresa knew she should refuse, should retreat back into the safety of her isolation, but she heard herself say, all right, next Saturday. The smile Ryder gave her was worth the fear. The next week passed differently than the weeks before it. Theresa caught herself looking forward to Saturday with an anticipation that felt both wonderful and terrifying. At the store, Mrs. Patterson noticed her distraction and said nothing, but the knowing looks she gave were eloquent enough. On Saturday, Ryder arrived right on time, and the trip to the ranch felt comfortable now, familiar. The mare was thriving, sleek and healthy, and greeted Theresa with a soft wicker of recognition. She remembers you, Ryder said, pleasure clear in his voice. Animals have good memories. So do people. At least, the good ones do. They checked the mare thoroughly, then moved on to the garden, which was flourishing under its new organization. Theresa felt a small glow of satisfaction seeing the plants healthy and strong. I have been practicing my cooking, Ryder said as the afternoon wore on. "Thought maybe you would like to stay for supper. Nothing fancy, just stew and biscuits, but it is better than what I used to make." Theresa hesitated. Staying for supper felt like crossing a line, moving from simple assistance into something more like friendship, or more than friendship. "Unless you need to get back," Ryder added quickly. "I do not want to keep you if you have other plans." "I do not have other plans." She never had other plans. Her life in Fort Stanton consisted of work, sleep, and the endless gray space between. "Supper would be nice. Thank you." They ate on the porch as the day cooled, and Theresa had to admit the stew was quite good. They talked about simple things: the ranch's progress, news from town, the best way to keep raccoons out of the corn. Normal, easy conversation that reminded Theresa of what life had been like before grief had narrowed her world to a pinpoint. "Can I ask you something?" Ryder said as they watched the stars begin to emerge. "What made you decide to stay in Fort Stanton after your husband died? Seems like it would be full of painful memories." "I had nowhere else to go. My husband's family blamed me for his death. Said I should have done more to stop it, even though I was unarmed and there were 3 rustlers. My own family is all gone. I thought about moving on, but I do not have money for travel, and at least here I have work." "You like it here? The town, I mean?" Theresa considered. "I do not think I let myself like or dislike anything anymore. I just exist. That is no way to live. It is safe. Is it? Or is it just another kind of dying?" The words should have stung, but they did not. Maybe because Theresa had thought the same thing herself, late at night when sleep would not come. Maybe because hearing someone else say it made it feel less like a failing and more like a problem that might, possibly, have a solution. "I do not know how to be any other way," she admitted. "Maybe you could practice. Small things at first, like letting yourself enjoy a good meal or a pretty sunset or a horse getting better. And if I let myself care about things again and then lose them, then at least you will have had them for a while, at least you will have lived." Ryder turned to look at her, his face serious in the growing darkness. "I spent 2 years after my mother died just going through the motions, working, sleeping, working again. Told myself it was better not to want anything because wanting led to disappointment, but I was not protecting myself. I was just wasting time. What changed? I realized that my mother would have hated what I was doing. She always said life was a gift, and throwing it away was an insult to everyone who did not get as much time as they wanted. So I started making plans, saving money, thinking about the future instead of just surviving the present. And it has been hard, and sometimes I still feel guilty for being alive when they are not, but at least I am building something now." Theresa absorbed his words in silence. The night air was full of cricket song and the distant yip of coyotes. Above them, the Milky Way stretched across the sky in a river of light. It was beautiful, and for the first time in a year, Theresa let herself acknowledge that beauty without immediately pushing it away. "Thank you for supper," she said softly, "and for the conversation. Anytime. I mean that, Theresa. Anytime you want to talk or just sit in silence or work in the garden, you are welcome here." On the ride back to town, Theresa found herself thinking dangerous thoughts. Thoughts about what it might be like to have a friend. To have someone who saw her as more than a cursed widow or a tragic figure. To have a place where she was welcome. The following week, a dust storm rolled through Fort Stanton, coating everything in a fine layer of grit and keeping everyone indoors. Theresa found herself restless, worried about Ryder's garden and the animals on the ranch. She told herself it was simple concern, the kind anyone would feel for a friend's property. But she knew it was more than that. She was worried about Ryder himself, alone out there in the storm. When Saturday came and the air finally cleared, She was waiting when Ryder's wagon rolled up. His expression brightened when he saw her, and Theresa felt an answering warmth in her chest that scared and thrilled her in equal measure. "I was hoping you would still want to come," he said. "Thought maybe the storm might have changed your mind. I wanted to see how everything fared." The ranch had weathered the storm well, though the garden needed some repair work. They spent the afternoon restoring what had been damaged and reinforcing what had survived. It felt good to work side by side, to have a shared purpose. Theresa found herself relaxing in ways she had not since before her parents died, laughing at Ryder's jokes, offering her own observations, existing in the moment instead of trapped in the past. "You have a nice laugh," Ryder said during a break. "I have been trying to earn it." Theresa felt her cheeks warm. "You have not been trying to make me laugh. Have not I?" His eyes held a teasing glint. "Why else would I tell that terrible story about the time I tried to break a horse and ended up in a water trough? That was a true story, unfortunately, yes. Complete with an audience of 12 other cowboys who never let me forget it." Theresa smiled, shaking her head. "You are ridiculous, maybe, but I made you smile, so I am counting it as a victory." As the weeks passed, Saturdays became the center of Theresa's world. She began taking pride in her appearance again, wearing her better dress and taking time with her hair. She noticed Ryder doing the same shaving more carefully, wearing a clean shirt, having flowers from the garden sitting on the porch table. They were courting, Theresa realized one day. Without ever speaking the word, without making any formal declaration, they were courting. The thought should have sent her running, but instead, it made her heart beat faster with something that felt dangerously like hope. "I have been thinking," Ryder said one Saturday in late September, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and gold. "About getting some chickens. Thought maybe you could help me pick good laying hens. I do not know much about chickens." "You know more than I do. Besides, I value your judgment," he paused, "on a lot of things." Theresa turned to look at him. "Why are you doing this? Doing what? Being so kind to me, so patient. Most people gave up on me a long time ago." Ryder met her eyes steadily. "Maybe I see something in you that is worth being patient for." "What could you possibly see? I am broken, Ryder, damaged. I do not know if I can ever be whole again." "You are not broken. You are healing. There is a difference." He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. His palm was warm and calloused against hers. "And I am not in a hurry. I am not going anywhere." Theresa looked down at their joined hands. "I am afraid." "Of what?" "Of caring about you and losing you. Of being happy and having it ripped away. Of proving everyone right who said I was cursed." "Those are reasonable fears," Ryder said. "But here is the thing, Theresa. Life does not come with guarantees. I could get thrown from a horse tomorrow. You could catch fever. The ranch could burn down. We cannot control any of that. All we can control is whether we choose to live while we have the chance. That is terrifying. I know. But it is also the only option that leads anywhere worth going." Theresa sat with that truth, feeling it settle into her bones. She had spent a year running from fear, trying to protect herself from more pain by refusing to feel anything at all. But Ryder was right. That was not protection. It was just slow death. "I do not know how to do this," she whispered. "How to let someone in again. Start small. Hold my hand. Have supper with me. Let me court you properly the way you deserve. And if at any point it becomes too much, you tell me and we will slow down or stop or whatever you need. And if I hurt you, then I will survive it, same as you have survived your hurts. I am not asking you to be perfect, Theresa. I am just asking you to try." That night, on the ride back to town, Theresa did not pull her hand away when Ryder helped her down from the wagon. She let his touch linger, let herself feel the warmth of connection, let herself want. It was the smallest of steps, but it felt like a beginning. October brought cooler weather and the golden turning of the cottonwoods along the creek. Theresa found herself spending more time at the ranch, coming twice a week now instead of just Saturdays. Mrs. Patterson had been understanding, adjusting Theresa's hours at the store with a knowing smile that suggested she approved of the developing relationship. The ranch was thriving under Ryder's care. He had purchased 6 hens and a rooster, and Theresa helped him build a secure coop. He also bought 2 more horses, planning to start breeding quality stock. Everything he did was careful and thoughtful, building for a future he believed in. "I want to build a bigger house eventually," he told Theresa one afternoon as they mended fence. "This one is fine for me alone, but it is not much. I would like something with a real dining room and a parlor and maybe a room for guests." "That sounds ambitious. A man should have goals." He glanced at her. "And hopes." Theresa knew what he was really saying. He was building a future that had room for more than just himself, a future that might include her if she could find the courage to reach for it. "I think it is wonderful," she said softly, "having dreams again. You could have dreams too if you wanted. I have forgotten how." "Then maybe we can figure it out together. Start with small dreams and work up to bigger ones." "Like what?" "Like having a good harvest from the garden, or seeing the foals when the mares have them, or waking up happy more days than sad." He paused. "Or maybe spending Christmas with someone instead of alone." Christmas. Theresa had not even thought that far ahead. The idea of planning for December when it was still October felt like tempting fate. But Ryder was looking at her with such open hopefulness that she found herself nodding. "I would like that, spending Christmas with you." The smile he gave her was brighter than the autumn sun. November brought an early cold snap and the first light snow. Theresa worried about Ryder alone on the ranch, so she started making extra food at the boarding house and bringing it with her on her visits. Hearty stews and fresh bread, the kind of meals that would keep a working man fed when the weather turned harsh. "You are spoiling me," Ryder said, but he looked pleased as he accepted the basket she brought. "You are feeding me every time I come here. It is only fair." They had fallen into comfortable patterns now, working together on ranch tasks, sharing meals, talking about everything and nothing. Theresa had told him about her childhood in Kansas, about the years traveling west with her parents, about meeting Daniel and the brief happiness of their marriage before the tragedy. Ryder had shared his own stories, filling in the details of a life spent moving from place to place until he was ready to settle. "You ever miss it?" Theresa asked one evening. "The traveling, sometimes. There was freedom in it, not being tied to one spot, but there was loneliness too. Never having a place that was really mine, never building anything that would last." He looked around at the ranch, pride evident in his face. "This is better. This matters. You have done an amazing job with it. We have done an amazing job. You have helped more than you probably realize." Theresa wanted to argue, but the truth was, she had helped. Her knowledge of plants had saved the garden. Her way with animals had made training the new horses easier. Her presence had turned Ryder's house into something warmer, more welcoming. She had contributed to this place, and that realization filled her with a satisfaction she had not felt in far too long. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me be part of this, Theresa." Ryder turned to face her fully. "You are not just part of this. You are becoming the center of it." "Do you understand what I am saying?" Her heart hammered in her chest. "I think so. I love you. I have loved you since that first day when you helped the mare, so gentle and capable despite thinking you did not have anything to offer. I love your strength and your kindness and your laugh that I have to work so hard to earn. I love who you are and who you are becoming." Tears filled Theresa's eyes. "I do not deserve you. That is where you are wrong." Ryder took both her hands in his. "You deserve happiness. You deserve love. You deserve every good thing in this world, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. I am still afraid, I know, but do you think you might love me too, even a little?" Theresa looked at this man who had been so patient, so kind, so unwavering in his belief that she was worth caring for. She thought about the months they had spent together, the walls he had slowly helped her dismantle, the hope he had coaxed back to life in her heart. "Yes," she whispered. "I love you too. I have been trying not to, trying to protect myself, but I cannot help it. I love you, Ryder." He kissed her then, gentle and sweet, and Theresa let herself sink into it. Let herself feel the warmth and promise of it. Let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe she could have this. That maybe happiness was not something she had to earn or deserve, but something she could simply accept. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "Marry me," Ryder said. "I know it is soon, and I know you are still healing, but marry me anyway. Let me love you and care for you and build a life with you. Let me show you every day that you deserve to be happy." Theresa's first instinct was to say no, to list all the reasons it could not work. But she looked at Ryder's face, at the love and hope shining there, and she thought about what he had told her months ago. Life did not come with guarantees. All she could control was whether she chose to live. "Yes," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "Yes, I will marry you." They were married in Fort Stanton's small church, 3 weeks later, on a cold December morning with snow falling softly outside. Mrs. Patterson and her husband stood as witnesses, along with a few of Ryder's friends from neighboring ranches. Theresa wore a simple blue dress that Mrs. Patterson had helped her alter from one of her better garments, and Ryder wore his Sunday best with a white shirt that made his hazel eyes even more striking. The ceremony was short and sweet. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Ryder kissed her with a tenderness that made Theresa's heart ache in the best way possible. For the first time in over a year, she felt truly present in her own life, truly connected to another person, truly hopeful about the future. The reception was held at Mrs. Patterson's house, with a small group of well-wishers sharing cake and coffee. People who had avoided Theresa for months now approached her with congratulations and genuine warmth. She realized that they had not been judging her as harshly as she had judged herself. They had simply been respecting what they thought was her need for space and time to grieve. "I am so happy for you, dear," Mrs. Patterson said, embracing Theresa warmly. "You deserve every bit of happiness, and that young man is going to take good care of you." "He already has," Theresa said. "He saw me when I could not see myself. That is what the right person does. They hold space for us when we are not strong enough to hold it for ourselves." As evening fell, Ryder drove them back to the ranch through the snow. The landscape was transformed, every harsh edge softened by white, every barren branch decorated with ice crystals that caught the light like diamonds. It was beautiful, and Theresa let herself feel that beauty without fear. The ranch house was warm when they entered, a fire already laid in the hearth. Ryder must have prepared it before coming to town that morning, planning ahead to make their first night as husband and wife comfortable. The thoughtfulness of it made Theresa fall in love with him all over again. "Welcome home, Mrs. Quinn," Ryder said, and the name sent a thrill through her. She was not just a widow anymore, not just a tragic figure carrying the weight of the past. She was a wife again with a future stretching out ahead of her. That night, lying in Ryder's arms in the bed they would now share, Theresa felt something she had thought lost forever: peace. Not the peace of giving up or shutting down, but the peace of accepting that she was allowed to be happy. That happiness was not a betrayal of those she had lost, but a way of honoring them by living fully. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," Ryder replied, his arms tightening around her. "And I am going to spend every day proving it." The winter months passed in a blur of small domestic pleasures, learning to cook side by side in the little kitchen, tending the animals together in the snow, sitting by the fire in the evenings, Ryder reading aloud while Theresa mended clothes or worked on embroidery. They were building a life together, stitch by stitch, day by day. Theresa found herself laughing more, smiling more, engaging with the world in ways she had not thought possible. The guilt was still there sometimes, particularly on the anniversary of Daniel's death, but Ryder held her through those dark moments and reminded her that grief and happiness could coexist. "Loving me does not mean you did not love him," Ryder said one night when she was struggling. "Your heart is big enough for both, for all of them." "How did you get so wise?" "I am not wise. I just know what it is like to be afraid of moving forward because it feels like leaving people behind. But they are not behind us, Theresa. They are part of us. They helped make us who we are, and that is how they live on." In early spring, Theresa discovered she was pregnant. The realization brought a tangle of emotions: joy, fear, hope, and terror all mixed together. She had lost so many people she loved. What if she lost this child too? What if something went wrong? But when she told Ryder, his face lit up with such pure happiness that her fears receded, at least for the moment. "We are going to have a baby," he said, wonder in his voice. He placed his hand gently on her still flat stomach. "Our baby. Are you ready for this?" Theresa asked. "It is so soon." "I have been ready since the day I met you. We are going to be great parents, Theresa, and this child is going to be so loved." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the spring and summer. Theresa felt better than she had in years, blooming with health and purpose. She continued helping around the ranch as much as she could, though Ryder became increasingly protective, insisting she rest more than she wanted to. "I am pregnant, not fragile," she protested. "I know. But humor me anyway. I cannot help wanting to take care of you." They spent the long summer evenings planning for the baby's arrival. Ryder built a beautiful cradle from cedar wood, sanding it until it was smooth as silk. Theresa sewed tiny clothes and soft blankets, her hands remembering skills her mother had taught her years ago. They talked about names, about how they would raise their child, about the kind of parents they wanted to be. "I want our children to know they are loved," Theresa said one evening. "No matter what happens, no matter what choices they make, I want them to always know they are loved." "They will," Ryder promised, "and they will have the best mother anyone could ask for." In late October, on a cool autumn morning very much like the one when they had first met, Theresa went into labor. Ryder rode to town for the midwife, a capable woman named Sarah, who had delivered half the babies in Fort Stanton. The labor was long but not complicated, and when the sun was setting in shades of orange and gold, Theresa held her son in her arms for the first time. He was perfect, tiny and red-faced and loudly announcing his presence, but perfect. Theresa looked down at him and felt her heart expand in ways she had not known were possible. This was her son, hers and Ryder's, a new life, a new beginning, a promise of the future. "What should we name him?" Ryder asked, his voice thick with emotion as he looked at his son. "What about Thomas?" "After my father." "Thomas Quinn. That is a strong name. I like it." They named him Thomas Daniel Quinn, honoring both of Theresa's lost loved ones. It felt right, like closing a circle, like finding a way to carry the past forward without being trapped in it. The first few months of parenthood were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Thomas was a good baby, healthy and hungry, keeping them up at night but rewarding them with smiles during the day. Theresa discovered reserves of strength she had not known she possessed, finding joy in the simple acts of caring for her child. Ryder was a devoted father, rising in the night to bring Thomas to Theresa for feeding, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor with his son during fussy periods. Watching him with their baby made Theresa fall even more deeply in love with him. "You are wonderful with him," she said one evening, watching Ryder rock Thomas to sleep. "He makes it easy. He is a good boy, just like his mother is a good woman and his father tries to be a good man. You are a good man, Ryder, the best I have ever known." As Thomas grew from an infant to a toddler, the ranch continued to flourish. Ryder had expanded the horse breeding operation, and their stock was developing a reputation for quality throughout the territory. Theresa managed the garden, which now supplied not just their own needs but also produce she sold in town. They were building something real and lasting, something that would endure. When Thomas was 2, Theresa became pregnant again. This time she was less afraid, more confident in her ability to carry a child and be a mother. Their daughter, Emily Rose, was born in early spring, a tiny thing with dark hair and her father's hazel eyes. Thomas was fascinated by his little sister, always wanting to help care for her, to show her his toys, to be near her. The years passed in the way they do when life is full and good. Thomas and Emily grew healthy and strong, learning to ride horses before they could properly run, helping with age-appropriate chores, filling the house with laughter and noise and life. Ryder built the larger house he had dreamed of, and they filled it with love and memories. Theresa sometimes thought about the woman she had been when Ryder first met her, broken, guilty, convinced she did not deserve happiness. That woman felt like a stranger now, someone from another life. She had learned that healing was not about forgetting the past or pretending pain had not happened. It was about integrating those experiences into a larger story, one that included joy as well as sorrow, hope as well as loss. "You remember the first day I came to your ranch?" Theresa asked one evening. They were sitting on the porch of their new house, watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of rose and gold. Thomas was playing with his wooden horses in the yard, and Emily was asleep against Ryder's shoulder. "Every detail," Ryder said. "You looked so fragile, like a strong wind might blow you away, but I saw the strength underneath. I knew you were going to survive. I did not think I would, did not even think I wanted to. What changed you, your patience. Your belief that I was worth saving even when I could not believe it myself." She took his free hand, lacing their fingers together. "You gave me time to heal at my own pace. You never pushed, never demanded more than I could give, but you also never let me disappear into grief completely. I loved you, that made it easy. It was not easy, I know it was not. I was difficult and closed off and scared of everything. You were hurt and needed time. That is not the same as being difficult." Ryder shifted Emily gently, settling her more comfortably. "Besides, you were worth waiting for, worth every moment of patience. Look at what we have built together." Theresa looked out at the ranch, the thriving gardens, the strong fences, the healthy animals, the house full of love and laughter. She looked at her children, growing up secure and happy. She looked at her husband, steady and strong and endlessly kind. "We built something beautiful," she said softly. "We did, and we are going to keep building it year after year until we are old and gray and surrounded by grandchildren." The thought made Theresa smile. Grandchildren. A future that stretched out for decades, filled with possibilities. She had thought that kind of future was lost to her forever, but Ryder had shown her it was still within reach. All she had to do was believe she deserved it and be brave enough to reach for it. When Thomas was 8 and Emily was 6, they welcomed a third child, another son they named Jacob. By then, Theresa had become known throughout the county not just as Ryder Quinn's wife, but as a healer and herbalist in her own right. People came from miles around seeking her remedies for sick animals and family members, and she helped everyone she could, finding deep satisfaction in using the knowledge her mother had passed down. The ranch had grown too, now employing 3 cowboys and supporting a sizable herd of cattle along with the horse breeding operation. Ryder and Theresa worked side by side as equal partners, making decisions together, supporting each other through challenges, celebrating victories large and small. "Remember when I could barely keep a garden alive?" Ryder asked one day, surveying their productive fields with satisfaction. "I remember. You have learned a lot since then. I had a good teacher, in more ways than one." He pulled her close, kissing her temple. "You taught me that patience and love can heal almost anything, that broken things can become whole again." "We healed each other," Theresa corrected. "I could not have done any of this without you." As the children grew older, Theresa told them about their grandparents and about Daniel, making sure they knew the family history and honored those who had come before. She taught them that love did not divide but multiplied, that remembering the past did not mean being trapped in it. "Your first father was a good man," she told Thomas one day when he asked. "He was 10 now, old enough to understand complex truths. He loved me, and he would have loved you if he had lived to meet you. But life does not always go the way we plan. Your Papa Ryder loves you just as much as if you were born from his blood, and I am grateful every day that I get to be your mother." "I am glad you married Papa," Thomas said seriously. "He is the best father anyone could have." "He is," Theresa agreed. "He is the best man I have ever known." The years continued their steady march. Thomas grew into a capable young man who loved the ranch and planned to take it over one day. Emily became fascinated with healing, often accompanying Theresa on her visits to sick animals and learning about herbs and remedies. Jacob was the wild one, always getting into mischief, keeping everyone laughing with his antics. Ryder and Theresa grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. They had weathered droughts and good years, sick animals and healthy births, disagreements and reconciliations. Through it all, they had remained committed to each other and to the life they were building. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Ryder surprised Theresa with a celebration. He had secretly arranged for friends and neighbors to gather at the ranch for a party, and Theresa walked into her own house to find it full of people who loved them. "You did all this?" she asked, overwhelmed. "You deserve to be celebrated. We both do." 20 years of marriage, 3 incredible children, a successful ranch. We have earned the right to be proud. That night, after the guests had left and the children were in bed, Theresa and Ryder sat on their porch as they had done countless times before. The stars were brilliant overhead, and the night air carried the scent of sage and pine. "Thank you," Theresa said, "for tonight and for every day of the last 20 years. Thank you for saying yes when I asked you to marry me. Thank you for being brave enough to let me love you when you were so scared. Thank you for building this life with me. I almost did not say yes. I was so afraid. I know. But you did it anyway. That is what courage is, being afraid and doing the hard thing regardless." Theresa thought about the woman she had been 2 decades ago, convinced she was cursed, certain she did not deserve happiness. She thought about all the moments since then when she could have given in to fear, could have pulled away, could have chosen safety over risk. But she had not. She had chosen love instead, again and again, and it had made all the difference. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Marrying someone as damaged as I was?" "Never. Not for 1 second." Ryder turned to face her fully, his hazel eyes now touched with gray at the temples, serious and loving. "You were not damaged, Theresa. You were hurt. There is a difference. And watching you heal, watching you bloom into the strong, confident, joyful woman you are now has been the greatest privilege of my life. I could not have done it without your patience. Maybe. But I could not have built any of this without you either. We needed each other. We still need each other." They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching the moon rise over the mountains. The sounds of the ranch surrounded them, horses moving in the pasture, the soft hoot of an owl, the wind in the cottonwoods. It was the sound of home, of belonging, of a life well lived. As the years continued, Thomas married a good woman from a neighboring ranch and started his own family. Emily surprised everyone by deciding to study medicine formally, traveling to Denver for training before returning to practice in Fort Stanton. Jacob eventually settled down as well, though it took longer, marrying a spirited woman who matched his energy perfectly. Ryder and Theresa became grandparents 5 times over, their house once again filled with the sound of children's laughter during holidays and family gatherings. They watched their children succeed and struggle, offering advice when asked and support always, proud of the people they had become. "We did good," Ryder said one evening, watching their extended family gathered in the yard for a summer barbecue. He was in his 50s now, his hair mostly gray, his face weathered by years of sun and wind, but his eyes still held the same kindness that had drawn Theresa to him decades before. "We did," Theresa agreed. She was 53, her dark hair streaked with silver, her hands showing the evidence of decades of hard work, but she had never been happier. "We did very good indeed." The ranch continued to thrive under Thomas's management, though Ryder still helped as much as his aging body allowed. Theresa continued her healing work, now training Emily and several other young people interested in traditional remedies. They had become pillars of the community, respected and loved, their story of patience and healing an inspiration to others facing their own struggles. On a warm evening in late summer, when Ryder was 58 and Theresa was 55, they took a walk together through the land they had worked for so many years. The garden was lush with vegetables and herbs. The pastures were full of healthy animals. The house they had built stood strong and welcoming, a testament to their commitment and love. "You remember what I told you that first day?" Ryder asked as they walked. "About terrible things happening and not being our fault." "I remember. I fought against that idea so hard. But eventually you believed it. Eventually you forgave yourself for things that were never your fault in the first place. Because you showed me how. You loved me when I could not love myself. You believed in me when I had given up believing. You were patient when I needed time." Theresa stopped walking and turned to face him. "You saved my life, Ryder Quinn, not by rescuing me but by standing beside me while I learned to rescue myself." "We saved each other," Ryder said, echoing words Theresa had spoken to him years before. "That is what love does. It makes us stronger together than we could ever be alone." They kissed there in the fading light, two people who had found each other when both were lost, who had built something beautiful from the ashes of grief, who had proven that patience and love could heal even the deepest wounds. As they walked back to the house hand in hand, Theresa felt a contentment so deep it bordered on joy. She had lived a full life. She had loved deeply and been loved in return. She had raised children who were good people and contributed to her community in meaningful ways. She had honored those she had lost while building a future bright with hope. Most importantly, she had learned that happiness was not something to be earned or deserved. It was a choice, made daily, to embrace life with all its risks and uncertainties, to love even when loss was possible, to hope even when fear whispered doubts, to believe that tomorrow could be better than today. The years continued their steady passage. Ryder and Theresa grew older still, their bodies slowing but their love remaining strong. They celebrated 50 years of marriage surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The party was held at the ranch, of course, because the ranch had always been the heart of their story. 50 years, Theresa marveled, looking at their gathered family. "Who would have thought?" "I did," Ryder said. "From the moment you agreed to marry me, I knew we would have decades together. I knew we would build something that would last." "How could you have been so certain?" "Because I knew what we had was real, was worth fighting for, was worth every moment of patience and every ounce of effort." He kissed her softly. "And I was right." In their later years, they moved into a smaller house on the property, leaving the main ranch house to Thomas and his family. But they remained active in ranch life, and Theresa continued her healing work until she was well into her 70s. They had become legendary in the county, the cowboy and the widow who had found love and built an empire of sorts through hard work and devotion. Young couples sometimes came to them for advice, asking how they had maintained such a strong marriage for so many years. Theresa's answer was always the same: patience, forgiveness, and choosing each other every single day. Love is not just a feeling. It is a decision you make over and over, especially when things are hard, Ryder would add. And never give up on someone who is struggling. Sometimes people need time to heal before they can fully love. If they are worth it, you wait. On a crisp autumn morning, very much like the morning when they had first met, Ryder and Theresa sat on the porch of their small house, wrapped in blankets against the chill. They were both in their 80s now, their bodies frail but their minds still sharp, their love still burning steady. "Do you ever think about how different your life would have been if you had not needed help with that mare?" Theresa asked. "All the time. But I do not think it was accident that brought us together. I think it was fate, or destiny, or whatever you want to call it when two people are meant to find each other. I am glad you found me, even though I was difficult and broken and sure I did not deserve happiness. You were never difficult. You were hurt. And I am glad I had the chance to show you that you absolutely deserved every bit of happiness you got." Ryder took her hand, his grip still strong despite his age. "I would do it all again, exactly the same way. Every moment of patience, every gentle word, every day of standing beside you while you healed, it was all worth it. I love you, Ryder Quinn. I have loved you for over 50 years, and I will love you for whatever time we have left. I love you too, Theresa Quinn. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. The absolute best." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in shades of gold and rose. The land they had worked, the family they had raised, the love they had nurtured, all of it was their legacy. And it was a legacy built not on perfection but on patience, not on avoiding pain but on healing from it, not on deserving happiness but on choosing it. Theresa thought about the frightened, guilt-ridden widow she had been when they met. That woman had believed she was cursed, that everyone she loved would be hurt or killed, that happiness was not meant for someone like her. But Ryder had proven otherwise. Through his patience and unwavering love, he had shown her that she was worthy of joy, capable of healing, deserving of a beautiful life. She had not thought she deserved happiness, but the cowboy's patience had proved otherwise. And in proving it, he had given her the greatest gift anyone could give, the chance to forgive herself and embrace life fully once again. As the sun climbed higher, Thomas came out to check on them, bringing hot coffee and fresh biscuits. He was 57 now, a grandfather himself, but he still looked at his parents with the same affection he had shown as a boy. "You two are up early," he said, settling into a chair beside them. Old habits, Ryder said. When you have spent 50 years waking with the dawn to tend animals, it becomes part of you. The ranch is doing well, Thomas said. The new foals are strong, and we got good prices on the cattle we sold last month. You built something that will last for generations, Papa. You both did. That was always the goal, Theresa said. Not just to survive, but to build something meaningful, something that would outlast us. They talked for a while about ranch business, about the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, about small daily matters that made up a life. It was ordinary and precious, this gathering of family on a beautiful morning. It was exactly what Theresa had thought she would never have again. As Thomas headed back to start his day's work, Emily arrived with her medical bag. She had developed a routine of checking on her parents every few days, making sure they were healthy and comfortable. "How are you both feeling?" she asked, pulling out her stethoscope. "Old," Ryder said with a grin, "but happy." Emily examined them both, declaring them in remarkable health for their age. "Whatever you have been doing, keep doing it. You are both healthier than most people 20 years younger." "We have had a good life," Theresa said. "That keeps you young." After Emily left, Ryder and Theresa remained on the porch, savoring the peace of the morning. This had become their favorite time of day, the quiet hours when they could simply be together, needing nothing more than each other's presence. "I have been thinking," Ryder said, "about writing down our story, not for publication or anything like that, but for the family. So our great-great-grandchildren will know where they came from, know that love and patience can overcome almost anything." "That is a beautiful idea. What would you say?" "I would say that I met a woman who had forgotten how to hope, and I loved her until she remembered. I would say that healing takes time and patience is not passive. It is actively choosing to believe in someone's potential, even when they cannot see it themselves. I would say that the best decision I ever made was asking you to marry me, and the bravest thing you ever did was saying yes." Theresa felt tears prick her eyes. After all these years, Ryder could still move her with his words, still make her feel cherished and valued and loved beyond measure. "And I would say that you taught me it is never too late to start over, that past pain does not determine future happiness, that sometimes the right person comes along at exactly the right moment, even if you do not realize it at the time." She squeezed his hand. "I would say thank you for everything." They spent the rest of the morning working on their story, reminiscing about the early days of their courtship, laughing over memories both sweet and challenging. It felt good to look back and see how far they had come, how much they had overcome together. As the weeks passed, they continued to work on their written history, adding details and stories, making sure future generations would understand not just what happened, but why it mattered. They wrote about loss and healing, about taking chances on love even when fear screamed warnings, about building a life one small choice at a time. Winter came again, their 52nd together. The New Mexico landscape transformed into something stark and beautiful, and Ryder and Theresa remained healthy and active despite their advanced age. They had become institutions in Fort Stanton, their long marriage a source of inspiration, and their wisdom sought by many. One evening, as they sat by the fire in their small house, Theresa looked at Ryder, really looked at him, taking in the lines on his face, the silver in his hair, the way his eyes still sparkled when he smiled at her. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I am thinking about how blessed I am. How lucky I was that you needed help with a sick horse on that day so many years ago. How my life could have gone a completely different direction if not for that moment. It was not luck. It was meant to be. Maybe." Or maybe it was you being brave enough to ask a broken woman for help and patient enough to wait while she learned to be whole again. You were always whole, Theresa. You just could not see it yet. That is why I needed you, to be my mirror until I could see myself clearly. They stayed up late that night, talking about everything and nothing, reluctant to let the day end. There was a bittersweet quality to their time together now, an awareness that their days were numbered even if they did not know the exact count. But instead of making them sad, it made every moment more precious. As spring arrived again, bringing new life to the ranch and new foals to the pastures, Ryder and Theresa celebrated another season together. They moved slower now, tired more easily, but their love remained a constant source of strength and joy. "I want you to know," Ryder said one afternoon as they watched their great-grandchildren play in the yard, "that loving you has been the greatest adventure of my life. Better than any cattle drive, more rewarding than building this ranch, more precious than anything else I have ever done." "You have given me a life I never thought possible," Theresa replied. "You have given me decades of happiness when I thought I was done with happiness forever. You have given me children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. You have given me purpose and peace and more love than one person should be able to hold. It has been my honor." They lived several more years, their love sustaining them through the challenges of aging, their family surrounding them with care and devotion. They remained in their small house on the ranch, independent and engaged with life until the very end. Ryder passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 87, with Theresa beside him as she had been for 55 years. His last words were, "Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for building this life with me. I love you." Theresa mourned him deeply, but this grief was different from the grief she had carried as a young widow. This grief was clean and honest, unmarred by guilt or regret. She had loved Ryder fully and been fully loved in return. They had built something beautiful together and left a legacy that would endure for generations. There was sadness in losing him, profound sadness, but also gratitude for every year, every day, every moment they had shared. She lived another 3 years after Ryder's death, spending her time with family, continuing to offer healing wisdom to those who sought it, and working on the written history she and Ryder had started. She made sure their story was complete, that future generations would understand not just the facts of their lives, but the love that had sustained them. Theresa passed away quietly at the age of 90, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren who loved her dearly. Her last thoughts were of Ryder, of the day they met, of his patience and kindness, of the life they had built together. She died with a smile on her face, at peace with herself and her choices, grateful for the happiness she had found after believing it was lost forever. The funeral was held at the ranch, of course. Hundreds of people came to pay their respects to a woman who had touched so many lives with her healing knowledge and her example of resilience and love. Thomas read from the history his parents had written, sharing their story with those gathered. "My parents taught me that love is patient," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "That healing takes time. That past pain does not determine future happiness. My father never gave up on my mother, even when she had given up on herself. His patience proved that she deserved happiness, and together they built something that will endure long after they are gone." As Thomas spoke, Emily looked around at the gathered family and friends. Her parents' legacy was not just the successful ranch or the healing knowledge passed down through generations. It was the example they had set of choosing love over fear, of being patient with those who are hurting, of believing in the possibility of healing and hope even in the darkest moments. That legacy lived on in every person present. In every life Theresa had touched with her remedies, in every couple who had been inspired by Ryder and Theresa's enduring marriage. It lived on in the ranch that still flourished, in the children and grandchildren who carried their values forward, in the written history that would teach future generations about the power of patience and love. Ryder and Theresa were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch, with a simple headstone that read, "Together they built a life of love and purpose. Together they proved that patience and hope can overcome any obstacle. Together forever." Years later, their great-great-grandchildren would visit that grave and read the history Thomas had preserved. They would learn about the broken young widow who thought she did not deserve happiness, and the patient cowboy who proved otherwise. They would learn that love is not just romance but commitment, that healing is not instant but worth the wait, that happiness is not something to be earned but something to be embraced when it arrives. And they would carry those lessons forward, building on the foundation Ryder and Theresa had laid so many years before. Because that is what legacy truly means, not just what you build in your own lifetime, but what continues to grow and flourish long after you are gone. The ranch still stands today, generations later, a testament to what two people can create when they choose love over fear, patience over impatience, hope over despair. The house Ryder built has been expanded and updated, but the bones remain the same. The creek still runs clear and cold. The mountains still stand guard in the distance. And somewhere in the wind that whispers through the cottonwoods, you can still feel the presence of the cowboy and his bride, the patience he showed and the happiness she found, the love they shared and the legacy they left behind. Theresa Novak came to Fort Stanton, New Mexico, as a broken woman who believed she was cursed, who thought she did not deserve happiness or love or any of the good things life might offer. But through the steadfast patience of a good man, through the slow process of healing, through the courage to choose hope over fear, she became Theresa Quinn, beloved wife, devoted mother, respected healer, and living proof that no one is too broken to be made whole again. She did not think she deserved happiness, but the cowboy's patience proved otherwise, and in doing so, he gave not just her but countless others the gift of believing in second chances, in healing, in the enduring power of love. Their story became legend in Fort Stanton and beyond, not because it was extraordinary, but because it was true. True in the way all the best love stories are true, built on real choices, sustained through real challenges, proven through real time. It was a story that reminded people that patience is not passive waiting, but active believing. That love is not just feeling, but doing. That happiness is not earned through perfection, but embraced through courage. And that sometimes, when life has broken you down to nothing, the right person comes along at exactly the right time. Not to fix you, because you are not something to be fixed, but to stand beside you while you heal, to believe in you when you cannot believe in yourself, to show you through their actions and their presence that you are worthy of all the good things you thought were lost forever. That was what Ryder Quinn gave Theresa Novak. And in return, she gave him a life full of love, purpose, and meaning. Together, they proved that the best kind of love is patient, and that patience, combined with genuine care and unwavering commitment, can help even the most broken soul find their way back to joy. Their story ended, as all stories must, with death. But it did not end with sadness or regret. It ended with a legacy of love that would ripple forward through time, touching lives they would never know, inspiring people they would never meet, proving again and again that she did deserve happiness, and that the cowboy's patience proved otherwise.